Grandpa Ned had always believed that a man didn't truly grow old until he stopped being useful. That belief was the only thing keeping him upright the morning his son told him there was no room. The message arrived quietly, without drama or warning, blinking on his phone like it didn't understand the weight it carried. "Sorry, Dad, no room for you." Ned sat at the small oak table in his kitchen, the same table he'd sanded and refinished 30 years earlier, the one where his wife Margaret used to drink her tea every morning. His coffee had gone cold. The clock ticked too loud. Rusty, his old Labrador, snored softly at his feet. "No room," Ned repeated aloud, testing the words as if they belonged to someone else. He was 72 years old, widowed, retired, and just weeks earlier he had spent more money than he ever had at one time, money he'd saved his whole life for what he believed would be the last great family memory he'd helped create. Apparently, memories didn't require him anymore. Ned Collins had never been flashy. He wore his shoes until the soles were thin, drove his truck long past the point most men would have traded it in, and saved every receipt in a small metal box labeled just in case. He'd worked 46 years as a municipal electrician. He knew the bones of the city better than most, where the wires ran, where the old pipes groaned, where the lights always flickered first during a storm. People only noticed his work when something failed. That was fine with Ned. At home he fixed things quietly, loose hinges, leaky faucets, broken toys when Brian was young. He wasn't the kind of father who talked endlessly about love, but he was always there, always steady, always present. Margaret used to say that Ned showed love the way oak trees did, solid, patient, unmovable. When she died 10 years earlier, the house changed, not dramatically, just enough to hurt. The rooms stayed clean but quieter. The recipes tasted different. Holidays became something Ned waited for instead of prepared. Brian still visited back then. He and Laura would come for Thanksgiving, sometimes Christmas. Laughter filled the house again for a few days at a time. Then work got busy. Then travel got complicated. Then the visits stopped. It started with a phone call, one of the rare ones. Brian sounded tired but cheerful. He mentioned work stress, Laura's friends, and then casually said, "We keep talking about taking a big vacation someday, just getting away, you know." Ned didn't say much, but after he hung up, he sat in his chair and stared at the family photo on the mantel, Margaret smiling, Brian at 16, the three of them at a lake, sunburned and happy. Margaret would have loved the idea, he thought. That night Ned barely slept. By morning, the decision felt inevitable. If life had taught him anything, it was this: waiting too long meant missing your chance. The resort brochure arrived in the mail like it was meant to. A lakeside retreat in Montana, mountains, fishing docks, cabins with stone fireplaces and wide porches. The pictures looked peaceful, like time slowed down there. Ned didn't hesitate. He booked the largest cabin available, 3 bedrooms, a loft, a kitchen bigger than his own. He paid for everything up front: flights, lodging, meals. He even added a few extras: guided fishing, a scenic train ride, things he imagined Brian and Laura enjoying. As he clicked confirm, his hands trembled, not from fear but from hope. When he called Brian, he couldn't hide his excitement. "I booked us a trip," Ned said. "All of us, just family." Brian sounded surprised, grateful even. "That's wow, Dad, that's really generous." Ned smiled like a boy who just fixed something important. Then Brian hesitated. "Well, Laura and I were thinking of inviting some friends." The smile faltered. "Friends?" Ned asked. "Yeah, couples we usually travel with. It's more fun that way." Ned swallowed. I thought it'd be a family thing." "I'll talk to Laura," Brian said quickly. "We'll figure it out." Ned believed him, because fathers always want to believe their sons. 2 days later, the message came. "Sorry, Dad, no room for you. We already promised the space to friends. Maybe next time." No phone call, no explanation, just that. Ned read it again, then again. The words didn't change. Something inside him folded in on itself, quietly, without breaking, like an old chair finally giving up under weight it had carried too long. He didn't respond. What was there to say? For an entire day, Ned sat with the hurt. He thought of college tuition checks, of late nights waiting up for Brian when he was a teenager, of driving hours to fix something at Brian's first apartment because Dad would know how. He wasn't angry, he was invisible. That night, as Rusty rested his head on Ned's knee, a thought settled in his chest. If there was no room for him in their plans, then maybe, just maybe, he had spent too many years shrinking himself to fit into other people's lives. By morning, Ned made a decision. He would go anyway. Ned drove instead of flying. He packed slowly, thoughtfully. Rusty rode shotgun, ears flapping in the wind like he was young again. Ned stopped at diners, slept in roadside motels, watched landscapes change from flat fields to rolling hills to towering mountains. For the first time in years, no one needed anything from him. When he arrived at the resort, the cabin took his breath away. It was beautiful and empty, 3 bedrooms, an unused guest book, a porch overlooking a lake that reflected the sky like glass. "No room," Ned said softly, then laughed, a real laugh, surprised and shaky. The first few days were strange. Ned cooked simple meals, walked with Rusty, fished alone. He slept deeply, without the weight of expectation pressing on his chest. Then he met Clara. She was staying in the next cabin over, a retired school teacher with sharp eyes and a sharper wit. She beat him at checkers and told him exactly why. "You think too much before you move," she said. "Life doesn't wait for perfect strategy." They shared coffee on the dock, stories, silence. Clara didn't ask why he was alone. She didn't need to. Others followed: Tom, a widower who traveled the country in an RV, Ellen, visiting her sister and rediscovering herself after a divorce. They didn't see Ned as extra. They saw him. Midway through the trip, Ned's phone rang. "Brian." "Dad," he said, voice tight. "We saw the pictures online. You went." "Yes," Ned replied calmly. There was silence. "We didn't think you'd actually go." Ned smiled sadly. "That's the problem, son." Brian stammered, apologized, blamed miscommunication. Laura sent a message later. It sounded polite, distant. Ned listened, then he said, "I hope you enjoy your vacation." He meant it, and for the first time, he didn't bend. When Ned returned home weeks later, the house felt smaller, but he felt larger. He framed a photo of the lake and hung it near Margaret's picture. "I went," he told her softly, "and I was okay." Brian called more after that, tried harder. Ned welcomed him, but on new terms. Because usefulness wasn't measured by sacrifice, and love wasn't proven by disappearing. Sometimes, the bravest thing a grandfather could do was take up space, even when others said there was no room.